What is going on, YouTube? Donald Trump won the presidency again. And Alan Lichtman, the guy who has virtually never been wrong about predicting who the president was, got it wrong. However, I predicted Donald Trump's victory using his own model. I've always been a big believer in Alan Lichtman's model. I think it's a solid model, and until now, I always thought it was rather objective and free of biases. However, I'm realizing now that whether or not you decide to give a key the true or false is subject to some biases, so it's not perfect. But a few weeks ago in my video, I went through a lengthy analysis of the 13 keys, what Lichtman was giving a true and what he was giving a false. And if you remember, once you hit 6 falses according to the model, you're supposed to lose your bid for re-election or your party's bid for election. And he had initially given Kamala 4. I had given her 7. So I thought, based on his own predictive model, that Kamala should have lost the election. Now let's take a look at what Lichtman gave false and what I gave false. So if we look here at party mandate, that's whether or not your party controls Congress. That one's rather objective. They don't, so it's false. No primary contest. This one was a big one for me. My problem with the way Lichtman was marking these as true or false was that he was getting a little too caught up in what the key actually was and not the intention behind it, because the purpose of this model is to predict voter behavior. So if it doesn't stay true to the intention behind the key, it doesn't make sense to give it a true. And the intention with the no primary contest is that a candidate is so popular that nobody contested their bid for president. And had it been Joe Biden running still, that was true. Joe Biden did not have a primary contest, but when he dropped out and Kamala took over with no primary contest whatsoever, that was technically true. There was no primary contest, but there wasn't even the option to do it because Joe Biden dropped out so close to the Democratic National Convention. So Kamala had no primary contest because they strategically kept Joe Biden's mental decline secret until the last minute and kind of stole the nomination. But had Kamala actually ran an honest ticket for the 2024 election, would she have had no primary contest? Highly, highly doubt it, so I believe that one should have been a false. Incumbent seeking re-election, that one's a false. Kamala is not Joe Biden. No third party, serious threat from a third party. That one's true. Strong short-term economy. Now, this one is marked by whether or not we're in a recession, which is technically true by the economic definition, but again, when we're looking at intention behind the key and not whether it's like technically true, the short-term economy is strong in almost no one's eyes. We're not technically in a recession, but most people are upset with the economy. Most people are upset that their dollar isn't going further, that they're spending more on the at the gas pump, at the grocery store, and exit polling and demographic shifts that voted for Trump. Clearly the economy was a very, very big point in why people voted for Trump. Now, how is it fair to tell me that if so many people voted for the opposing candidate because the economy sucks, that we have a strong short-term and strong long-term economy? So the strong short-term should be false. The strong long-term economy is, he put that as true. I just went ahead and agreed because based on GDP growth and the boom after COVID, sure, it's a strong long-term economy. But personally, I don't know how many people vote based on the strong long-term economy. I know I don't. Maybe I'm weird, but I do look a lot more at the short-term economy, and I think a lot of other people do. With that Trump campaign thing that they kept saying, where is your life better now than it was 4 years ago? That makes a good case for the strong short-term economy, but I went ahead and gave the strong long-term economy a true. I don't think we're necessarily in a bad place long-term, at least by his definitions. I'm sure if we just were to look at this as a generic statement, strong long-term economy, there's plenty of arguments for why we don't have a strong long-term economy, but by his own definition, that one is true. And I'm trying to stick to his definition and not my interpretation of these definitions. Major policy change, I went ahead and did true for that. After COVID ended, with the Build Back Better plan, there was a lot of changes going on after Biden took over, so that's fair enough to give it a true. Another one I gave a false that he didn't was the no social unrest. Now this one, I can't believe he gave it a true. There were protests all over college campuses this year, so much so that it was constantly a question on the campaign trail and people complaining about anti-Semitism on college campuses. And those lasted much longer than the George Floyd riots, which were considered enough to give it a false statement for Trump in 2020. So there definitely was social unrest, and there might be some argument like it wasn't widespread enough, but it definitely was. It was all over America, all over college campuses. So I have no idea why he felt it was okay to give this one a false, or excuse me, a true. But I had given this a false. So if we're keeping track, by my verdict, we're at 5. He's only at 2. So my verdict is 1 more and you're done. And his verdict is we're still going strong. No foreign or military failure. That one is a resounding false. You can look at the war in Gaza for that. That is an objective failure. The war in Afghanistan, which I'm not sure too many people have that one on their minds, but that one could be viewed as a true or a false, depending on how you look at it. Taliban takeover of Afghanistan. Not a lot of people would be happy about that, but ending a decades-long war could be seen as the true. And the war in Ukraine, same deal. A lot of people are upset about that. Why are we still in this war? Why are we spending so much money on this? Why is it still going? Or we were able to keep Putin from annexing Ukraine. So that could be a true or a false. But as far as the war in Gaza, objective false. That is a military failure. Foreign military success, I put that as true. He had mentioned something about forming a NATO coalition against Russia and defending Ukraine. I went ahead and put that one as a true. Just, there is an argument that there is also a false for that one too, but considering how ahead I am on falses, I didn't feel the need to argue that one. I can see that one being a military success. I'm not sure how people are viewing Ukraine and to the lesser extent Afghanistan, which I'm not sure Afghanistan even had the influence to turn that key, but regardless, we're both putting that one as true. And then charismatic incumbent, that's whether the candidate running in the ruling party has the charisma to reach out to voters outside of their base, which of course Kamala did not have that whatsoever. She was not reaching anyone that wasn't a core Kamala voter. And then uncharismatic challenger is essentially the opposite of that, whether the opponent is able to reach out to more people outside of their base, which I had also put as true. I think Trump was not doing a good job at reaching out to normal people. However, I think there was an argument to say, now looking back at the exit polls, that this is a false, because Trump was able to reach out to Latinos, blacks, Muslims, Arabs, all these kinds of voters that historically have voted against Trump. He was able to reach out to them. So, in theory, that one should have been a false, but I did not put it as a false. I did leave that one as a true. So, final tally, Lichtman put Kamala at 4. Before the election, he was locked in at that. Before the election, I had put Kamala at 7 falses, which would have resulted in her losing the White House. So, I believe Lichtman posted a video going into him being wrong. I haven't had a chance to watch that yet. I just wanted to get this video out, kind of remind everyone how I was able to use this model to predict the election, because I still think it's a solid model. I think he was just using it incorrectly. I'm wondering if in the future he's going to change the model a bit, update some of these keys, if he's going to change anything at all about it since being incorrect, or if he's just going to say, it isn't perfect, it's been wrong before. But this model's claim to fame was that it was virtually never wrong. So 2 instances of being wrong kind of destroys some of the credibility of it. I think he should rethink some of these keys. I mean, I'm not the PhD he is, but I'm more interested to hear about how this strong long-term economy thing is being measured, because I think that's a good metric to look at. But the fact that people are, thinking they're never going to own a home, accurately thinking that they're never going to own a home because home prices are out of control. The rate of inflation is deeply concerning. There hasn't been a strong period of deflation. Things like that should be considered for the strong long-term economy, not just GDP growth. And originally, Lichtman was claiming his model was incorrect because it was counting the popular vote or the electoral vote. But in this instance, Kamala lost both the Electoral College and the popular vote. It was a lose-lose. This wasn't just that the Electoral College sucks, which it does, and I'm going to be making a video in the future going into why, even though Kamala lost the popular vote, an abolishment of the Electoral College still could have resulted in Kamala winning, despite the fact that she did not win the popular vote. But that's a topic for another day. Kamala lost. Lichtman was wrong, and I'm not picking on this guy. I'm not even saying I have really the authority to pick on him, and I'm not calling him like an idiot or anything, but I don't understand why he put these as 4. And I'm sure he explains it in depth more than what I've read somewhere in his social media circle. But I've been using this model and following it since 2016 when he called Trump as the victor, and everyone mocked him, and then he was right. People mocked him calling Biden too, so I was a big believer. And this time he called Kamala, and at that point I decided I think it might be time to separate this model from him, because we can look at these 13 points and come to a conclusion ourselves. We'll see. I'm interested in to hear what he has to say. That's something I'm going to watch. But I wanted to just make this video quickly to highlight that I had called it right here at Cynicism. So just remember that. Please subscribe, comment, rate to help the algorithm. Follow for more political analysis and commentary. Follow for more videos on this topic, on the election, on current events. And I will see you guys around.